I'm Rachel Morgan, 34, and I never expected to walk into my own home and feel like a stranger. After cutting my Zurich business trip short, I returned to find 88 people partying in my house. My mother, Beverly, stood in my kitchen wearing an apron, directing caterers. My brother, Ethan, was bartending at my grandfather Maxwell's antique bar. A family reunion was in full swing, one I knew nothing about, in the house my grandfather left specifically to me. If you're watching this from a family gathering, I hope yours is more welcoming than mine was. Drop a comment about your family, reunion experiences, and subscribe to follow what happened after I made the decision that changed everything. I built my career the hard way. While most of my college friends were partying, I was coding until 3 a.m., developing skills that landed me a position at Next Gen Solutions. I started as a junior software engineer in a cubicle so small I could touch both walls with my outstretched arms. For 7 years, I worked 80-hour weeks, surviving on instant ramen and determination. When others complained about demanding clients or impossible deadlines, I put my head down and found solutions. That dedication didn't go unnoticed. By 30, I was leading my own development team. By 32, I became the youngest executive director in the company's history. My grandfather Maxwell was my biggest supporter. An engineer himself, old school, he worked with his hands, building bridges across the country. He understood dedication and craftsmanship. When I was 12, he gave me my first computer while my mother, Beverly, rolled her eyes, saying I should be outside playing with other kids. But Grandpa Maxwell would wink and whisper, "Some build with steel, others with code." Both changed the world. Every Sunday through high school, I'd visit him at the old Victorian house that had been in our family for 3 generations. While my mother and brother skipped these visits, I'd sit with Grandpa in his study as he taught me about structural integrity, mathematical principles, and most importantly, personal integrity. "A Morgan never cuts corners," he'd say, pointing to the intricate woodwork of his antique desk. The person who made this desk took pride in their work, even the parts no one would ever see. That's the mark of someone worth trusting. My brother, Ethan, 3 years younger, took a different path. He had a natural charisma that made people want to give him things. Where I worked for my achievements, Ethan expected them. He started and dropped out of 4 college programs, each time convincing our mother he'd found his true calling. Each new venture required startup money, which Beverly provided from her teacher's salary, stretching herself thin financially. When Grandpa Maxwell passed away 2 years ago, his will shocked everyone but me. The family home, a historic Victorian in a now trendy Boston neighborhood worth nearly $2 million, was left solely to me. His note in the will was simple: "To Rachel, who understands the value of building something to last." My mother was livid, insisting he must have been confused and that the house was meant for the whole family. She expected me to sign it over or sell it and split the proceeds with her and Ethan, but I couldn't. The house wasn't just wood and plaster. It was every Sunday afternoon lesson, every proud smile when I shared my accomplishments, every quiet moment in the library reading his books. I moved in immediately, lovingly restoring rooms while preserving their historic character. I converted the library into my home office, but kept Grandpa's books and antique desk. I replanted his garden according to his meticulous notes, bringing back the heirloom roses he'd cultivated for decades. Despite the inheritance tension, I tried maintaining a relationship with my mother and brother. I invited them for holiday dinners, which they attended with an air of being visitors rather than family. I offered to help Ethan with his latest business scheme, a food truck concept, with business planning rather than cash, which he declined. I even offered to help my mother with her mortgage, which she accepted but mentioned at every opportunity as if it were a loan I was collecting interest on rather than a gift. The Zurich trip was a major career milestone. NextGen had been trying to land Helvetica Banking Systems as a client for years. As the new international accounts director, landing this contract would cement my reputation and open European markets. After 2 grueling weeks of presentations, negotiations, and little sleep, I secured a 3-year contract worth millions. The team wanted to celebrate in Zurich, but I was homesick. I wanted a quiet evening in my garden with a glass of wine. Reflecting on how far I'd come, I booked an early flight, not telling anyone I was returning 2 days early, a private victory lap. During the flight, I scrolled through photos of my garden where the spring tulips would be at their peak, planted in a pattern Grandpa designed. To spell onward from the upstairs window, his favorite motto. I thought about the bottle of Cabernet I'd saved for a special occasion. But as the Uber turned onto my street, that warmth of coming home lasted exactly 12 seconds. Cars were everywhere parked on both sides, partly on my lawn, blocking my driveway. Music thumped through my quiet neighborhood. The driver stopped half a block away, commenting, "Looks like some party." I stood on the sidewalk, staring at my house, lights blazing, shadows moving inside, laughter spilling onto my garden where strangers stood with plastic cups, cigarettes dropping ash onto my flower beds. Had my house been taken over? I wheeled my suitcase up the path, dread growing with each step up my garden, which I'd spent countless weekends perfecting, was a trampled mess. Grandpa's tulips were crushed under careless feet. Cigarette butts littered the lawn like toxic confetti, and my hand-carved teak garden chairs were rearranged into a makeshift smoking area stained with beer bottle rings. Men I'd never seen stood near my koi pond, one tossing coins into it for luck. I wanted to tell him copper is toxic to fish, but was too stunned. Children chased each other, one nearly knocking over the stone lantern Grandpa imported from Japan in the 1970s. No. One questioned me as I approached my own home. I was just another face in a sea of strangers. The front door was propped open with a potted plant from my sunroom. Inside, the sensory assault hit, a mix of perfumes, cooking odors, and spilled alcohol. Dozens of conversations, music from my living room sound system, children shrieking on my stairs, the stifling heat of too many bodies. My foyer, normally calm with an antique console table and mirror, was cluttered with purses, jackets, and gift bags. A banner read, "Morgan Family Reunion 2025, bringing the generations together." A folding table held name tags and a guest book. I moved through my home in a daze, recognizing distant relatives I hadn't seen in years, mingled with unknown faces. Great Aunt Mabel, who I thought lived in Arizona, sat in my reading nook with elderly women. Cousins from childhood summers clustered around my dining table, extended with rental tables for a buffet spread. In the kitchen, my mother, 62 but looking younger, her hair freshly highlighted, wore a dress with a corsage, directing caterers. When she saw me, there was no joy, just annoyance. "Rachel, what are you doing here? I thought you were in Europe." Until Sunday. Not welcome home, or we missed you, just irritation. "I live here, Mom," I said, struggling to process. "What is all this?" "It's the family reunion," she replied as if obvious. "We've been planning it for months, planning in my house without telling me." She waved dismissively. "We knew you were busy with work. Besides, you're always saying we should use the house more, that it's too big for just you." I'd never said that. I've been clear about my boundaries, especially after Ethan's impromptu pool party while I was at work. Before I could respond, Ethan appeared, carrying empty glasses, wearing a shirt with Morgan Family Reunion host embroidered on it. "Oh, you're back early," he said casually. "Surprise." The afterthought lacked enthusiasm. How did you get in? I asked, already knowing. Mom had the spare key you gave her for emergencies, he replied with a shrug. Don't worry, everything's under control. We hired cleaners for tomorrow. I looked around at my home, transformed without my consent into a venue for strangers. Scratches marred my hardwood floors from moved furniture. My grandmother's antique secretary desk was pushed against the wall, wine glasses leaving rings on its 19th century wood. A tall man approached. You look familiar. Are you from Mableside or Richards? I'm Rachel Morgan. This is my house, I said flatly. His eyes widened. Oh, you're Maxwell's granddaughter, the one who got the house. Nice of you to host. Should have been divided among the family, though, if you ask me. He wandered off, leaving me seething. I overheard similar conversations. Never see her at family functions anyway. Spends all her time working. Doesn't even know half the family. What would she do with all this space? Family photos from my attic storage were displayed. Cousins rifled through Grandpa's record collection. My laptop was moved for a dessert table. My private space was violated. In the dining room, I found custom t-shirts with Morgan Family Reunion 2025 and a date 3 weeks prior. This was planned well in advance without me. Needing air, I stepped onto the back porch, occupied by teenagers complaining about the lame family thing. I walked back through, past my mother posing for photos with second cousins from Chicago, past Ethan mixing drinks, past great uncle someone and first cousin once removed whoever. No one noticed as I picked up my suitcase in the foyer and walked out. Halfway down the block, tears blurred my vision. I booked a room at the Marriott downtown. I couldn't stay and make a scene. I couldn't pretend this was okay. I needed space to thank God at the hotel. The sterile room was a stark contrast to the chaos. I sat on the bed for an hour, replaying the evening. This wasn't the first time. My mother and brother dismissed my feelings, but it was the most flagrant. Memories surfaced, my 8th birthday party, where Mom invited my class, but forgot a cake I wasn't allergic to. Don't make a fuss, Rachel. My high school graduation, where they arrived late and left early for Ethan's baseball game. It's the semifinals. We'll see the photos. My engineering scholarship, met with Mom suggesting something more feminine, while Ethan's mediocre grades were celebrated, his abandoned hobbies funded, his irresponsibility framed as finding himself. At midnight, I called my best friend, Hannah, who'd witnessed my family dynamics for 20 years. They did what? She exclaimed. In your house, without telling you. Oh, hell no, Rachel, that's beyond disrespectful. Am I overreacting? I asked, conditioned to doubt myself. Overreacting? If anything, you're underreacting. They invaded your space, used your property, and didn't invite you to a family event in your own home. That's not normal. Hannah's validation solidified what I knew. This wasn't about a party, but a fundamental lack of respect. I barely slept. My mind running through options. Confront them, they'd minimize it. Request an apology, they'd give a hollow one. Explain my feelings, they'd call me oversensitive. By morning, resolve set in. I returned at 9 a.m., expecting most guests gone. I was right about the guests, but wrong about the house. Empty bottles and glasses littered surfaces. Food was ground into my Persian rugs. Someone had been sick in my powder room sink. Rental chairs were stacked haphazardly. My garden looked like a tornado hit. My mother was in the kitchen, drinking coffee, scrolling. Her phone. There you are. Where did you disappear last night? So dramatic, Rachel. No apology, just criticism. I stayed at a hotel since my bedroom was a coat check room, I replied, keeping my voice even. Oh, that was Ethan's idea. We needed space. The cleaning crew will be here at noon. That's not the point, Mom. You used my house without asking. You didn't tell me about a reunion, let alone invite me. She sighed as if I were unreasonable. You're always working. Would you have come? Besides, you're so particular. If we'd asked, you'd have had a million conditions. Yes, I would have had conditions about my property. That's normal. Ethan emerged, disheveled in yesterday's clothes. Morning, he mumbled, grabbing coffee. Great party, right? Everyone loved the house. Why didn't you? Tell me about this reunion, I asked. He shrugged. We needed a big place, and you have all this space. What's the big deal? We're a family. The big deal is this is my home, not a public venue. You can't just use it without permission. Technically, it's the family home, my mother interjected. Your grandfather would have wanted everyone to enjoy it. That lit the fuse. Don't tell me what my grandfather wanted. He left this house to me because he knew I'd respect it. I walked away to assess the damage. In the study, Grandpa's antique mahogany desk, a symbol of craftsmanship, had a deep scratch and a cigarette burn, despite my no-smoking policy. It was where he taught me to draft, wrote my college recommendation letters, penned his will. My home office door was ajar, the lock forced. Drawers were open, documents moved, my laptop relocated, my framed first dollar from freelancing cracked. Upstairs, my bedroom door was open despite a private "please keep closed" sign. My closet and drawers were disturbed. Back downstairs, my mother and Ethan discussed Cousin Phil's karaoke performance. My office was broken into. My bedroom was entered. Grandpa's desk is damaged, I said. Some kids were playing hide and seek, Ethan said dismissively, and that desk thing is probably a water ring. It'll buff out. It's a cigarette burn and a knife scratch, I corrected. It's a 200-year-old desk. Always. So dramatic, my mother sighed. It's just stuff, Rachel. To them, my home was just stuff they felt entitled to use, damage, and disregard. To me, it was my sanctuary, my history, violated by those who should respect it most. I called Hannah for moral support. She gasped at the house's state. What are you going to do? I don't know yet, but I can't keep pretending this is normal. I called Scott Reynolds, a real estate agent who'd approached me about selling the Victorian, a prime property developer's eyed since Grandpa's passing. Scott, is that offer from last month still on the table? My mother and Ethan, discussing airport rides, fell silent. Scott arrived within the hour, noting the property's state tactfully. In the garden, he said the cash buyer, Victor Jang, a tech entrepreneur, was still interested, motivated to settle quickly. What's his offer? I asked. $2.1 million cash, slightly below market for an expedited timeline, no inspection contingencies. I nodded. I want to move forward. Scott, surprised, confirmed, this is significant. The house has been in your family for generations. I'm aware. That's why I'm making this decision. By afternoon, I signed preliminary documents with my lawyer, Diane Matthews. My mother demanded, what kind of business requires a real estate agent at our family home? I introduced Diane and said, I'm selling the house. The buyer will close quickly. Remove your belongings by tomorrow evening. Silence, then an explosion. You can't be serious, my mother spluttered. Impulsive and ridiculous. Even for you. Ethan added, you're overreacting about the party. We said we're sorry. Neither of you apologized, I pointed out. This isn't about apologies. Some boundaries, once crossed, can't be uncrossed. My mother softened. Rachel, honey, you're upset. Selling your grandfather's house is a decision you'll regret forever. Same pattern. Minimize, deflect, pretend to compromise. The decision is made. Mr. Jang accepted the offer. Diane interjected. Mrs. Morgan, the transaction is in process. Your daughter has the legal right to sell. My mother tried guilt. Where are we supposed to go? Your apartment, the one I've been helping pay for, I replied. Ethan threatened to contest the will, but Diane shut it down. The deadline passed 18 months ago. It would be frivolous. I packed Grandpa's engineering books, photos, letters, pocket watch, and fountain pen. The desk, too damaged to move, stayed. By midnight, my essentials were in my car. I booked an extended stay hotel. My mother's final attempt. If you do this, you're tearing apart this family. You can't tear apart something that was never truly together, I replied. The next morning, Victor Jang and his assistant met me at the house. He was early 40s, confident, straightforward. I didn't hide the damage. He didn't flinch. The bones are magnificent, he said, admiring the crown molding. At the damaged desk, he noted, American Empire, circa 1830. I know a restoration expert. His respect for the house's history meant more than he knew. We signed closing documents in the dining room. Ethan stormed in, followed by my mother. Stop, this is a mistake. Diane asked them to leave. My mother appealed to Victor. This house has been in our family for generations. Victor stood firm. I've entered a legal contract with Rachel, the sole owner. Ethan pleaded, Rachel, we'll respect your space. No more surprise parties. I felt doubt, but knew the promises were empty. It's too late. My mother claimed I was destroying Grandpa's legacy. Grandpa's legacy isn't this house, I said. It's integrity, respect, self-reliance. He trusted my judgment. I'm using it now. The closing was anticlimactic. Signatures, a cashier's check, a handshake. Victor promised to honor the home's history, noting a hidden library compartment with historical documents. I handed him the keys. Some chapters need to stay closed. My mother and brother watched in silence as I left. No goodbyes, just the weight of choices. I felt lighter with each step. The first week was a blur. I moved to a furnished apartment. With a 6-month lease, opened an investment account, set aside tax funds. Silence from my family was expected, but jarring. No calls, no texts. On day 9, social media flooded with messages from extended family, calling my decision selfish, claiming I robbed our heritage over a harmless gathering. I responded only to cousin Melissa, who asked if I was okay. There's more to the story, but I'm at peace. She replied, I figured. Your mom and Ethan have a different version of reality. Grandpa would understand. At work, I threw myself into the Helvetica project. Hannah noted I seemed lighter. I didn't realize how much emotional weight that house carried, I admitted. 2 weeks later, Victor sent photos of the desk's restoration. I declined his offer to take it. It belonged with the house, but his kindness was healing. That evening, my mother appeared at my apartment, disheveled, crying. She'd been evicted. Ethan was living there against the lease. Her savings were spent on the reunion and Ethan's failed coffee shop. How much do you need? I asked. $3,000, maybe $4,000 for a new place. I considered it, but Grandpa's voice echoed, enabling versus helping. I can't give you money, Mom. I won't enable the same patterns, but I'll help find resources, housing options, employment counseling for Ethan, financial planning. She scoffed. This is your revenge, making us jump through hoops. It's boundaries, I replied. The offer stands when you're ready for real change. She left angry. 6 months passed. I bought a cozy townhouse with a small garden, planting tulips for Grandpa. My career flourished with a promotion. Therapy helped me recognize normalized patterns and set boundaries. My mother and I didn't speak for 3 months. Melissa said they'd moved to a small apartment. Ethan worked at a hardware store. When Mom called, her tone was hesitant. Can we meet? At a coffee shop, she admitted, I wasn't fair to you, not just with the party, but for years. I favored Ethan, resented your success. Stunned, I asked what changed. Reality, she said. I visited Grandpa's grave, angry. He always said, life doesn't owe you anything. It's what you build. I stopped building expected things from you. We started monthly dinners, slowly including Ethan, who earned a contractor's license. I like fixing things, he said. Taking something broken and making it work. Not all family ties mended. Some relatives saw me as the villain. I focused on my chosen family friends, colleagues, neighbors. A year later, Victor sent photos of the restored house, preserving its character, including the onward tulip pattern. Your grandfather's legacy lives on, he wrote. My legacy wasn't the house, but Grandpa's values: integrity, self-respect, courage. On the sale's anniversary, I hosted Mom and Ethan at my townhouse. It was awkward but honest, a foundation for something healthier. Mom said, Maxwell would be proud of you for selling, for making hard choices. Later, in my garden, I reflected. I'd lost a house but gained clarity, enforced boundaries but created space for connection. The path wasn't clear, but it was unburdened by toxic patterns. If you're struggling with similar decisions, boundaries aren't walls to keep others out. They're guidelines for respect. Your worth isn't how much you tolerate, but how much you respect yourself. Share your story below. It might help someone. Subscribe, like, and remember, family is important, but so are you.